Hi guys, this is Jeff, and I'm going to show you how to get the artwork ready for the 8-foot diameter by 24-inch tall circle trade show hanging sign. And so to start off with, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take the template layer and I'm just going to drag it into Photoshop. And so now that I have this open, there's a couple things to point out before we really get started. The first one is since this is already the full-size template, you want to actually design and do your layout right on top of it. And you can do that by just going to File and Place and selecting your logos and dropping it right on top of this. But when you do that, make sure to keep the template as its own separate layer. So over here on the right, when we're all done, we're going to want to delete it or hide it. But I usually just select the layer and drag it into the trash can. And that way we're left with the full-size document, except we don't have, obviously, the template that's going to be visible. So the other thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that this is in CMYK color mode. And I can see that mine is because it's on the top here, it says CMYK. But if for some reason you open up the template and it's in RGB mode, go ahead and switch that over now. And the way that you do that is by going to Image, Mode, and make sure that CMYK color is selected. Okay, so now we're ready to go ahead and get started. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to drop our logo in, and I can do that by going to File, Place, and here's our logo. It's an Adobe Illustrator, you'll notice, and that's because this logo is vectored. So it's going to allow me to go ahead and scale it without it being pixelated. So you're going to want to make sure that you go and you find your vectored logo, and if it's not vectored, make sure it's really high resolution, because the moment that you scale it, it's going to just blow it apart. It's going to stretch it, and it's going to end up pixelated. So try to use the vectored logo, and as I have mine here, since it is small, we're just going to go ahead and scale it, and I do that by holding down Shift, grabbing a corner here with the mouse, and I just pull it. So this constrains the proportions so that it doesn't move it around, and you get it to about the size you want, which is right about here. And then what I can do is I can actually just move it over to where I want it to be. So we're going to start with the left-hand side here, get it right about where we want it, right-click, and then place it. So now, since this is a circle hanging sign, it's not as clear how many times the logo is going to be repeated. And with a square, it's more clear, because with a square, there's 4 sides. One logo per side usually does the trick. But with a circle, it's just whatever really fits and looks right. I can tell you that repeated around 3 times is pretty common. So that's a good starting point. So what we can do now is we can go over to the logo layer, and we don't need to place it again. We can just copy what's already here by right-clicking, going to Duplicate Layer, clicking OK, and now I can just move it. We have a duplicate here, and move it to about the center here. And we're going to do it one more time. Duplicate it again, and so now we have all of them. So now we have the logo repeated 3 times, right? Because this full-size document is going to represent going all the way around. So the fabric being printed out all the way around the circle hanging sign. So once we have that, we're ready to go ahead and zoom in by pressing Control and plus on a PC or Command and plus on a Mac, and get to about 1 inch equals 1 inch in real life. And this is going to give us a good indication of if there's any pixelation. And since ours is vectored, we don't have that problem. So we can look at it. It looks great. So you're going to want to go ahead and take this step to make sure everything looks good. And then you want to press Control and minus or Command and minus to zoom back out. And we're almost done. One thing I'd recommend is going ahead and saving a copy of your working layered file here. So in case you need to make any changes or any edits, make sure you have this saved. Usually just File, Save As, and then save it as a Photoshop file. So that way you can revert back to it. But at this point, what we're ready to do is we have the design all done. And you can see here, here's the bleed accounted for on the top. So this area. So make sure to keep your logo at least a couple inches away from that bleed line so it doesn't get cut off or look too close to the edge. So now what we're ready to do is we're ready to go ahead and delete that template layer we talked about. So just select on it in the layers here and just drag it into the trash can. So now we're just left with the document and the logos. And what you can do at this point is flatten it. And you do that by going to the top here, clicking layer, and then flatten image. And what that's going to do is that's just going to go ahead and compress everything together so that it's locked in place. It's a more manageable file to upload, and there's not going to be, if you use maybe some fonts that we don't have on our computer, it won't matter anymore because everything's just locked in. So it's pretty useful to do that. That's why we use Photoshop. And then lastly, what you want to do is you want to go ahead and save this, and you can do that by going to File and Save As. And the file type for the hanging signs here, since it is such a big document, it's even bigger than, let's say, a banner stand, is you can save it as a PDF if it lets you. Sometimes it doesn't because the file's too big. And if that's the case, you want to go ahead and save it as usually like a large document Photoshop file, which is a .psb. So look to see if that's an option on yours, and we can go save here, and I can see my drop down, here's a .psb, and that'll work just fine. So that's a really good option. Usually you want to stay away from JPEGs. A JPEG is a compression file. So that's what I would recommend, a PDF if it lets you, and if it's too big, go ahead and save it as a .psb. All right, if you have any questions, let me know, and make sure to like down below.